If you walked through a medieval monastery garden in 12th century France, or browsed the vegetable stalls of ancient Alexandria, you would have seen bundles of leaves shimmering in shades of gold, magenta, and deep burgundy red. This was not a decorative flower, but dinner. It was the green that fed Roman legions, sustained desert caravans, and graced the tables of kings. For over 2,000 years, it was simply called spinach in Europe, even though true spinach wouldn't arrive from Persia for another millennium. This is the story of Orach Atriplex hortensis. It is the leafy green that nourished Hippocrates' patients, colored medieval manuscripts, and then vanished almost overnight from Western agriculture. Welcome to Ancestral Yields. If you want to grow a garden that feeds you more than just empty calories, hit that like button and subscribe. Let's unearth the Orach. To understand how completely this plant has been erased from our collective memory, we have to recognize that for most of human agricultural history, Orach was spinach. The word we use today is actually a linguistic fossil. In ancient Greece, it was called Atriplex. The Romans knew it as Atriplex and cultivated it extensively throughout their empire. When medieval monks translated classical agricultural texts, they used the Latin olus atrum, literally black pot herb, which eventually became the French Orach, the German Gartenmeld, and the English Orach or mountain spinach. The story begins not in the garden, but on the salt flats. Orach is a member of the Amaranthaceae family, specifically the genus Atriplex, which contains over 250 species of salt-tolerant plants. Most of these are wild coastal or desert plants, survivors in places where nothing else will grow. But somewhere in Central Asia or the Mediterranean basin, the exact origin is lost to time. Humans recognized that one species, Atriplex hortensis, produced massive, tender leaves that tasted remarkably good. Unlike its weedy cousins, this plant grew tall, sometimes reaching 6 feet, with leaves the size of a human hand. The Greek physician Dioscorides, writing in the 1st century AD, described Orach in his foundational medical text De Materia Medica as a cooling and moistening herb, useful for treating inflammation of the stomach and intestines. He noted that the golden-leaved variety was the most prized, while the red variety was used as a natural dye. This wasn't culinary trivia, this was essential medical knowledge. In the ancient world, food and medicine were the same thing. By the time we reached the Roman Empire, Orach had become a dietary staple. Pliny the Elder, in his Natural History, mentions it alongside beets and chard as one of the fundamental olera, pot herbs, grown in every Roman kitchen garden. The Romans understood something we've forgotten. Greens were not a side dish. They were the foundation of the meal. Meat was expensive and often scarce. Grains provided calories, but leafy greens provided the vitamins, minerals, and bulk fiber that kept people alive through long winters. What made Orach particularly valuable in the ancient world was its salt tolerance. While lettuce and most other greens would wither and die if irrigated with even slightly brackish water, Orach thrived. In coastal regions and arid areas where salt accumulated in the soil from evaporation, Orach became the only reliable leafy green. This wasn't a minor advantage. It was the difference between nutrition and malnutrition for entire populations living on marginal land. The medieval period represents Orach's golden age. In the Capitulaire de Villiers, Charlemagne's famous decree from around 800 AD listing the 94 plants that must be grown in every imperial garden, Orach appears by name. It was mandatory infrastructure, the medieval equivalent of a strategic grain reserve. Monasteries across Europe cultivated it extensively, not just for food but as a holy plant. The monks believed that the gold and crimson varieties represented divine light and Christ's blood, respectively. Saint Hildegard of Bingen, the same 12th century mystic who wrote about the Cornelian cherry, devoted an entire section of her medical text Physica to Orach. She wrote that it cleanses the stomach and takes away the bad humors. She prescribed it specifically for melancholy, what we would now call depression, believing that its vibrant colors could literally drive darkness from the body. Whether or not her metaphysics were correct, modern research has confirmed that Orach is indeed exceptionally rich in magnesium, iron, and B vitamins, nutrients directly linked to neurological health. But Hildegard also noted something crucial about preparation. She warned that Orach must never be eaten completely raw in large quantities, as it contained a certain earthiness that could disturb the blood. She was describing oxalic acid, the same compound found in spinach and chard. The medieval solution was simple. Always cook it, always add fat, and always combine it with warming spices. This wasn't superstition, it was practical nutrition developed through centuries of observation. Then, sometime in the late 15th century, everything changed. Spanish Moors returning from the Arabic world brought back seeds of a new green from Persia. Spinacia oleracea, true spinach. This plant had smaller, darker leaves that were less bitter than Orach and, crucially, could be eaten raw more easily. As sugar had done to the cornelian cherry, changing taste preferences began to favor convenience over complexity. By the 17th century, English gardening manuals were describing Orach as old-fashioned and spinach as modern. The linguistic confusion was complete. The new plant stole the old plant's name, and the original spinach of Europe was rebranded as a rustic vegetable of the past. The final blow came with industrialization. Orach seeds are remarkably unique in their structure. Unlike spinach, which has relatively uniform seeds, Orach produces two types of seeds on the same plant, a phenomenon called heterocarpy. Some seeds are large, round, and enclosed in papery bracts that look like tiny flying saucers. These germinate easily and produce vigorous plants. But interspersed among them are smaller, brown seeds without wings that have much lower germination rates and can remain dormant in the soil for years. For a medieval peasant with time to hand-select seeds, this was manageable. For a 20th century seed company trying to mechanize planting and ensure uniform germination for commercial growers, this was a nightmare. Spinach seeds are uniform and predictable. Orach seeds are chaotic and individualistic. The industrial food system chose predictability, and Orach was quietly eliminated from commercial seed catalogs. There's another factor that modern consumers don't consider: shelf life. When you buy a bag of spinach at the grocery store, it has been bred for one primary characteristic: staying crisp in a plastic bag for 10 days under refrigeration. Orach, harvested at maturity, begins to wilt within hours. The leaves are larger and more delicate than spinach, with higher water content. You can't harvest Orach on Monday in California and sell it on Friday in New York. You have to grow it where you eat it, harvest it the day you cook it, and process it immediately. In the modern supply chain, this is impossible. In a home garden or a local market, this is actually a feature, not a bug. It forces freshness. It demands seasonality. It reconnects the eater to the grower. To understand what we lost, we need to examine what Orach actually contains. A 2014 study published in the Journal of the Science of Food and Agriculture analyzed the mineral content of red Orach and found that it contained significantly higher levels of calcium, magnesium, and potassium compared to commercial spinach. Specifically, the calcium content was measured at nearly 400 milligrams per 100 grams of fresh leaves, more than a glass of milk. The red and purple varieties of Orach derive their striking color from betalains, the same class of pigments found in beets. Unlike anthocyanins, which are the pigments in most red fruits, betalains are far rarer in the plant kingdom and possess unique antioxidant properties. A 2008 study in phytochemistry demonstrated that betalains have potent anti-inflammatory effects and may help protect against oxidative stress at the cellular level. The golden variety, which Dioscorides prized so highly, contains exceptionally high levels of carotenoids, particularly lutein and zeaxanthin. These compounds are concentrated in human eye tissue and are directly linked to preventing age-related macular degeneration. A single cup of cooked golden Orach can provide more of these protective compounds than a serving of kale. Perhaps most importantly, Orach is one of the few leafy greens that thrives in alkaline soils with high salt content. This makes it uniquely suited to modern agricultural challenges. As climate change increases soil salinity through rising sea levels and poor irrigation practices, Orach becomes not a relic but a solution. It is pre-adapted to the conditions we're accidentally creating. For the modern gardener, Orach solves problems that industrial agriculture tries to fight with chemistry. Spinach has a notorious problem. It bolts. The moment temperatures rise above 75 degrees Fahrenheit and days lengthen past 14 hours, spinach plants rush to flower, and the leaves turn bitter and inedible. This gives you a harvest window of perhaps 3 to 4 weeks in spring before the whole crop is ruined. Orach, by contrast, is remarkably bolt-resistant. While it will eventually flower, it tolerates heat far better than spinach and continues producing edible leaves well into summer. In trials conducted at the Rodale Institute, Orach continued producing harvestable leaves for 8 to 10 weeks longer than spinach in the same conditions. Furthermore, Orach has virtually no pest pressure. While spinach is plagued by leaf miners, aphids, and fungal diseases like downy mildew, Orach is largely ignored by pests. The same compounds that give it its distinctive flavor also make it unpalatable to most insects. For those wanting to grow it, Orach is perhaps the easiest leafy green you will ever plant. Seeds are available from heirloom seed companies such as Baker Creek, Seed Savers Exchange, and Territorial Seed Company. You'll find varieties listed as red Orach, golden Orach, and magenta spreen. Orach is direct-seeded in early spring, as soon as the soil can be worked. It tolerates light frost and actually prefers cool weather for germination. Plant seeds a 1/4 inch deep, about 2 inches apart, in rows 18 inches apart. Thin seedlings to 10 to 12 inches apart once they have 4 to 6 true leaves. The plant tolerates a wide range of soils and pH from 6.0 to 8.5. Prefers full sun but tolerates partial shade. Water regularly but don't overwater. Orach handles drought far better than wet feet. Begin harvesting when plants are 8 to 10 inches tall. You can harvest whole young plants, or pick individual leaves from the bottom up as the plant grows. The leaves are best when young and tender. The critical piece that medieval cooks knew: Orach should almost always be cooked. The oxalic acid content, while not dangerous in moderate amounts, is high enough that consuming large quantities raw can interfere with calcium absorption. A brief sauté, steam, or boil neutralizes the oxalic acid and dramatically improves flavor. The traditional preparation across Europe was simple. Sauté the leaves in butter or olive oil with garlic, then finish with a squeeze of lemon. The acidity brightens the flavor and the fat carries the nutrients. If you choose to grow Orach, you're not just planting a vegetable, you're participating in an act of agricultural resistance. You're rejecting the premise that food must be uniform, shelf-stable, and optimized for industrial logistics. You're choosing a plant that demands you eat it fresh, that connects you to the rhythm of the seasons. Orach is the leafy green that built the Roman Empire, sustained medieval monasteries, and colored the manuscripts that preserved human knowledge through the Dark Ages. It is the original spinach that was erased from history by linguistic theft and industrial convenience. And it's waiting in the seed catalog, ready to grow again. If you enjoyed this deep dive into the lost greens of our ancestors, hit that like button. Subscribe to Ancestral Yields for more stories of the plants that fed civilizations. We'll see you in the garden.